And quick word before we get started. Today's episode is brought to you by Diag Partners, Staffing and Recruiting. Welcome back to In the Harbor. I'm your host, Jason Johns, and we have an exciting episode today as we are joined by Josh Venable. Josh has spent 20 years inside public policy, from the county courthouse all the way to the White House. And in that period, managed a budget of $487 billion? Annual budget?
$87 billion annual, yeah.
Oh, $87 billion, okay.
Yeah.
In annual funding at the Department of Education, where he was chief of staff. He left public policy, and now he's working at a dump. So I think we can hear all about that. Josh, welcome to the pod.
Jason, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. So I think we kick off with kind of your origin story. So let's talk about that. Michigan, born and raised.
Absolutely. Born and raised in Davison.
Okay.
Yep.
Davison, and then you went to Hillsdale for undergrad?
To Hillsdale, did undergrad there.
Okay. How was that experience?
It was great. It was great. Had a great time, learned a lot, lifelong friends, and really enjoyed my time there.
Everyone I meet who went to Hillsdale, it sounds like just a great college experience.
Yeah. I went there before it sort of blew up
with all the emails
publicity.
I get in my inbox.
Yeah. So it was, if you knew about Hillsdale, you knew about Hillsdale, which was nice. But yeah, it was a good time.
All right. And then what was your foray into public policy?
I was just a political nerd growing up. So I graduated Hillsdale on a Sunday, walked across the stage, got my diploma, got in my car, and drove to Cadillac, Michigan, and started as a campaign manager for a state Senate campaign the very next day.
You're kidding me.
No.
And you were a poli-sci major?
It's poli-sci and psychology double major.
Okay, I'd say that's a good double major.
It worked.
They can go hand in hand. That is fascinating. And then, I mean, you obviously, in that vein, you went to the heights of public policy.
Great opportunities, very fortunate to have been able to hold some really fun positions for some really great folks, work with a lot of good people. So, I worked in the Michigan Senate. I was legislative director there. I worked at the Michigan Republican Party, the Republican National Committee. I worked on President Bush's re-election campaign in Michigan in 2004, did the presidential inaugural, actually did a stint at the Department of Education under President Bush in his second term, left there and came back to Michigan and walked out the door of the Department of Education, never thinking I would walk back in, let alone walk back in as chief of staff.
As chief of staff, right?
Yeah,
that's a big job.
Full circle.
Oh, that's amazing. So now you're, CEO and co-founder of Recap.
Yeah.
And let's talk a little bit about what is Biochar.
Sure.
So I'd love to.
You've got some right there.
We do have some right here. It looks like coffee.
It makes really bad coffee. Don't try that.
I'm sure. Although we might try it. I'll test it on Charlie.
Perfect. So, biochar is, if you think about it, in essence, it's organic charcoal, right? So it is made from organic waste. And by organic, I mean anything that was once living, right?
Right. Tree limbs, grass clippings.
Exactly. Branches, agriculture residue, that sort of thing. And carbon is the building block of all of that, right? So what our process does, and we can talk about this, we didn't invent biochar. This is not something that we did. But our process takes that carbon, it's called pyrolysis. So if you think about it, it's basically heating it at a high temperature in the absence of oxygen so that it doesn't combust, it doesn't catch fire. Mm-hmm. And what that does is harden and solidify the carbon molecules and turns into that product that you see there, which is biochar.
All right, and so let's think about that. What are the benefits of that process then? Because obviously when you have just decaying, formerly living, elements.
Stuff.
There's going to be gases off put, everything else.
Yeah. It's really beneficial all the way around, honestly. And the way that Recap makes biochar is different, and our process and our feedstock is different. We've actually patented it, but in generally speaking, right? Like it is an alternative to waste management. And I would tell you today, Recap is a waste management company. We make biochar, but we are a waste management company. And the benefit, as you mentioned, Jason, is as that product sits there and decomposes, left to its natural devices, it's going to convert that carbon into methane, which is a greenhouse gas 25 times more potent than CO2. So you've got a waste problem, and you've got a space problem, and you've got a pollution problem.
Yeah, so you're solving for a lot of it. And then let's think about, your typical county or municipal run disposal is going to have a useful life of so many years based on volume.
Right.
So what does that look like from a biochar perspective?
Yeah. Well, that's the really unique proposition that Recap brought to the table. So, as I mentioned, we're not the only biochar producers. We're not, we didn't invent that biochar, by any means, right? But the vast majority of biochar that's created in the United States today is made from waste from the timber industry. So clearings, sawdust, that sort of material, which is great and it makes great biochar. But when Austin, my co-founder, and I sort of set out to do this, we had the discussion of let's find something that really is waste, right? There's competition for that material, for mulch, for compost, for packaging, for that sort of stuff. And we set out to really find something that is waste, that people didn't ascribe any value to, so that we could recap that value from that product. And raking my backyard one fall day in Lansing after a windstorm, and piles of leaves and branches, and where does this go? And that's what led us down the path of working and partnering with local governments to take their yard debris, keep it out of a landfill, and convert it to biochar.
So let's think about that from an economic perspective.
Yeah.
So there's obviously a cost associated with it.
Yeah.
But you also have multiple revenue streams.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is that self-sustaining at each one, or would you ideally want to have kind of a centralized location that handles waste from multiple counties?
Yeah. We are decentralized on purpose. And again, that's part of our model and part of our process and what we've set up, really to our benefit. We are, so if you think about it from the local government standpoint, right, our county partners, they have a money problem and they have a real estate problem, right? Everybody has a money problem. That's not unique. But if you think about waste management as an industry, we've gotten really good as society of disposal. Like we're pretty good at that. We know how to do it. Recycling is great. That's fantastic. What the problem at its core is a real estate problem. And that's operational footprint of where these operations are going to go. And then, as you mentioned, it's the capacity in a landfill. That's a fixed asset, right? So
right, and that's just a volume measurement.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So every ton in is a ton off the tab that's lost and gone forever in that fixed asset. And once that is full and reaches capacity, you got to find something else. You got to find somewhere else. You got to build something else. And I mean, we're all sort of dealing in this world today of the data center debate, and no one wants a data center in their backyard. It's the same thing. It's been that way for decades with landfills. Nobody wants a landfill in their backyard either.
Well, we just had that conversation on the pod on the last episode where nobody wants it in their backyard, but they still want the economic benefits that come with it. So
right. Yeah, but I mean, if you think about organic waste generally, it's the largest component of waste in the United States, more than anything else, and that's everything from food scraps to yard debris, right? $3.4 billion spent on an annual basis for disposal of this organic waste. Not hazardous waste, not construction, demolition debris, just organic waste. And in the United States, 28 million tons of yard debris generated every single year. This is separate and apart from any kind of storm debris, right? That's all calculated and handled differently. So, 28 million tons sounds like a crazy number. We operate in Florida, so for perspective, I tell folks, that's, if you think of the vehicle assembly bay at Kennedy Space Center, the giant, NASA, where they roll the spaceship out of, that is filling that every year about 30 times.
Oh my gosh.
Bringing it home to Metro Detroit, right? If you think of Ford Field, 28 million tons, not the field, like the entire volume of Ford Field, everything under the dome, 800 times filled. Half of that material today is landfilled or incinerated, put to no beneficial use.
No beneficial use.
None at all.
Not
it is
mulch,
just
not a.
and at Recap we like to call it wasted waste, right? It is something that is there that collectively we say we've got no better option than to light this on fire or stick it in a hole in the ground.
And what is likely the cause of that? There's just nobody thinks of what other uses could be.
Yeah, I think so.
From a county government standpoint,
and it's hard,
they just
right?
think of.
And it's something that's showing up every single day, right? You don't have the benefit of, let's take 2 months and figure this out. Let's take a year and do a study and figure this out. Let's find something. You have to deal with it as it comes in, which makes that, sort of forward-thinking option less attractive because you've got to deal with the daily. So that's where, again, as a private entity coming in, we've got the value and the benefit of being able to do that. We can sort of think forward-thinking ways and bring that solution to them of, here's an off-ramp for you. Here's a better way. And I mean, the value proposition that we offer to them is, we're going to manage this for you a heck of a lot cheaper than what you're currently paying for it. We're going to save you, our operational footprint, because if you think about the yard debris at your house, right, that you put into the paper Home Depot bag, or you put into the green cart and wheel it down to the curb, and then it goes on the truck.
Yeah, the waste management just picks it up.
Yeah. And then poof, it's gone, right? Mm-hmm. Nothing else happens. It's just taken care of and solved. But when it comes to where we are and dumps off of that truck, from dumping it off of the truck to turning it into biochar is about a 90-minute process for us, which is wildly different than what other practices are. I mean, they let material pile up for 6-8 weeks. So you're talking about giant footprints because we take it and our process reduces it by about 80%. So it's taking up way less space. Our footprint is smaller anyway. We're able to give these counties about 75% of the whole chunk of land that they currently have devoted to this operation back. It's like, go do something else. Turn it into a park. Use it for other operations. And by the way, none of it's going across the street in your landfill either.
Right. So think about that from a useful life. What are the studies on a new landfill? What would be the useful life typically?
It depends on size, right? So it is, as you can imagine, a very intense permitting process, right? Sometimes decade plus permitting process. So it all depends on where it is, proximity to water, proximity to the water table, how high they will allow the slope to go, of how much that can contain. But if you look, again, we operate in Florida. If you look in Florida, sort of generally speaking, every ton of material that goes into a landfill, so the replacement cost for that to find new landfill space or build new landfill space is anywhere from $150 to $250 a ton. If you look at the coastal counties, right, where you've got higher water table, you can't go as deep, and you've got development, so you've got less land. Those prices jump to $500 for every ton, and we take a fraction of that, and that is that is infrastructure, you know, found infrastructure, found capacity for these counties because we're able to save that for them.
Right, and even when they rate their useful life, they're looking at it from a perspective of how much waste they take in per person.
Absolutely.
And that yard waste is included in
Absolutely.
that. So,
Absolutely.
And now a word from our sponsor, Diag Partners, a staffing and recruiting firm. If you've ever tried to fill an open role, ended up sorting through hundreds of resumes with nothing to show for it, you know how much time that actually costs a business. Diag Partners works directly with companies to find candidates who fit the role and the team, not just the job description. Full disclosure, we've used Diag Partners at Rock Harbor. Learn more at www.diagpartners.com. So from essentially it's a public-private partnership that you're looking for. So if we look at Leon County in Florida, so Tallahassee, where you had your kind of beta test, right?
Yeah.
And that was your first location. When did that start?
So this is a fun story. We first, Austin and I put this crazy idea together, and then figured out very quickly, like, someone's got to let us try this. It's never been done before. That's why we patented it, right? No one has done this anywhere before we did it. So, Florida made a lot of sense for us. Year-round access to this material makes a lot of sense for us. Not much yard debris in Michigan in February.
Right.
And looking at counties that would make sense, counties that might listen to us, right? Leon County, it's the capital county. Tallahassee is in Leon County, so that helps. It's been hugely beneficial for us from a state regulation standpoint, again, because no one had done this before. So being in their backyard made them a little bit more comfortable that they could see what we were doing. But Leon County, very interestingly, houses their solid waste, sustainability, parks and rec, and facilities all in the same department, which is really weird on a county government level. And they call it the Office of Resource Stewardship. And that just really struck with me of, okay, they're looking at waste as a resource too. Maybe they think about this the same way that we do. And, called them up and just said, can we come meet with you? And the department director there, Maggie Terrio, she's fantastic. Very open to trying new things. And we had several meetings. And she said, look, like, I get pitched magic black boxes all the time. So if you guys want to try it, all on you. All the risk is on you. All the money is on you. You run it. You pay for it. We're not paying you. But, basically, we'll give you a corner of our landfill and some of our trash, and you guys see if you can make this work.
Right, the old put up or shut up.
Yeah, absolutely. So we jumped at the opportunity. Yeah. We jumped at it. It was great. And they gave us 6 months to sort of like get it going and figure it out. And if we got to the 6-month gate, they said, we'll give you 6 more to try to tweak it and improve it. And if you get to that year, then we'll sit down and talk about what's next. And that's what we did.
That's
it was a fun ride. It was a fun ride. We learned a lot. We ran into a lot of unexpected problems that we had to solve for. And my background is not in this. Austin's background is not in this. So we were figuring it out on the fly.
But would you say some of your public policy background helped you kind of navigate the
absolutely,
quote unquote red tape?
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, like that's just amazing. And speaking to the strength of the partnership with Leon County, from that very first meeting to having a signed agreement with them to do this pilot was less than a year. Like that
doesn't happen in local government.
No.
That's fascinating. And so what did you learn from that process? Any valuable studies? I know Leon County was awarded what was the National Association of Counties
award. So it's been fantastic. So we started we're now building the 3rd generation site in Tallahassee, sort of like getting to the end of that story, right? We made it to the year mark. It was successful. the county administrator made a recommendation to the county commission that we enter into a long-term procurement that was approved unanimously by the county. So that is a 3-year ramp up from where we were, which we were managing about 10% of the overall yard waste that was coming into Leon County during that 12-month pilot, to ramping up to 100%. That's the site that we're building out right now. And then once
that's a big ramp up,
it's
though.
huge. Yeah.
You go from 10% to 100.
Yeah. We've brought on a fantastic operations director, background in engineering and chemistry, which is fantastic for us. We stole him away from Amazon, and he's a Tallahassee native originally, so he gets to come back home and build this really awesome thing for his hometown, which is really cool.
Oh, that is very cool for him.
Yeah.
So let's think about that. So that ramp up is in full swing.
Ongoing.
So how have you looked at other counties?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how replicable is it?
Yeah. So we've been operating since 2022. And Austin and I were really intentional of looking at this in phases, right? Of let's go do our research and figure this out. Let's then prove the concept. Let's then prove that we can scale it from concepts bigger. And then let's go build a full industrial operation. And we did that because for us, it's really important to know that we've got the operational experience and know how to do this before we go, sell our wares, if you will, somewhere else. So we've done that. That's what we've been doing since 2022. And people have heard, you mentioned Leon County, received the county government version of an Emmy or an Oscar for their yard debris operation, which we were just, ecstatic about and so proud that we could be part of getting them some recognition on the national stage.
Right, a total proof of concept.
Absolutely. Yeah.
A validation.
Yeah. And, other counties are hearing about that. And we're talking to other counties. This is in Florida in particular. It's a problem nationwide, but in Florida in particular, it's a huge problem. They produce twice the national average yard debris per capita as the country.
Right. You're probably mowing your lawn year round as opposed to here in Michigan.
Yeah. And 6 years of constructed landfill capacity left in the state. That's it. So it's a real pressing problem. That's
6 years?
6 years.
Oh, and then the population growth on top of that.
Right.
Which is ever growing.
Yeah.
So
they have 22 years of permitted capacity beyond that they can go and build out. But then again, you're talking about cost. You're talking about, okay, this plot of land behind my house was permitted for a landfill. Now they're turning it into a landfill. That looks a lot different. So
the way you set this up, though, it's very, very capital intensive initially.
It is.
Thinking about kind of the business itself and the business case, the partnership with the counties, what does that look like? I think most founders would want to have some kind of cash flow to help them continue to build and expand, and you guys took an opposite track.
We did. Again, on purpose, right? Because we wanted to prove the concept. And we did that successfully. One of the things about our model is that we're co-located at an existing facility, which is, again, hugely important for us because if you ask the average citizen in Tallahassee about recap or about biochar, they don't know about us.
Right.
Which, again, is on purpose because changing human behavior is really, really hard. So no garbage trucks are going through streets where they weren't going before. Collection day doesn't change from Thursday to Tuesday. Drivers don't have to learn new routes. And importantly for us, we're not paying to transport the material. That's really helpful for us. So as we look to grow and scale, right, we are, sort of coming out of this proof phase into the more growth and expansion phase. We're talking to major counties that represent anywhere from 5 to 10x of the total capacity that Leon County has. So I am confident that we will sign those deals, which then, to your point, Jason, puts us in a very different model of securing the funding and the financing that we need to go and plop these sites down. Now, the experience that we've had in Leon building this out, like on our third generation now, we have reached a point that is very replicable. It's very modular. It is very easy to scale that from a 15,000 ton operation to a 150,000 ton operation.
Oh, that's fantastic. So there's benefits to the municipality or the county government.
Yep.
Benefits to the residents, even though they don't necessarily see it.
Yep.
And then, of course, there are benefits to biochar in and of itself.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about that market a little bit. Who are you selling the biochar to?
Yeah. Traditionally, biochar is used as a soil amendment in agriculture. So you can till it into a field, into an orchard. Great beneficial properties for agriculture. It's what was originally developed as. It reduces the bulk density of the soil, so it gives roots more room to grow and spread. It's very, very porous, so it basically acts as a sponge to hold nutrients and water. So you need less irrigation, you need less chemical fertilizer, and you've got less runoff, right? That is hugely important in Florida and Michigan, both. That extra nutrient running off into the lakes and streams is what causes all these nasty algae blooms and red tides and all of that.
Right.
So, and with fertilizer, pricing and availability being what it is today, the ability to reduce that need is also huge. So lots of beneficial properties, increases crop yield depending on the crop, on average of 10 to 15% increase in yield. So wildly beneficial to farming. We're OMRI listed, so anyone that's doing organic farming, this is a product that they can use and maintain their organic.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, and then what about carbon credits?
Yeah.
Associated with that, that's got to be part of the business.
It is. We're excited about that as well. So familiar, I'm sure, with carbon credits in general. These large companies, can't overnight switch to zero carbon. So in the process and the lead up, they purchase these carbon credits. And this goes back to the discussion we were having, about methane, right? So absent what we're doing, this material either lights on fire and all of the carbon goes up immediately, or over time turns into methane and the greenhouse emissions are emitted into the atmosphere. That captures the carbon. That's it. That is the carbon that's sitting right there. So for every ton of biochar that we produce, on average, about 2.5 tons of CO2 emissions are captured into the product itself. So we are a carbon negative operation that then allows us to go generate these carbon credits. We're in the final stages of approval to being listed on the carbon markets to be able to sell the credits.
Oh, that's fantastic. So how many lines of revenue are we talking about here?
Three. Okay. So we partner with the counties, and we receive a management fee for every ton of material that we manage for them. Again, less than what they're currently paying or what the other options were. Leon County, just by way of example, 22% cost savings over what they were currently paying, not including the asset value of not putting this into it. They were not. I mean, Leon County was not putting it into a landfill, so they were already a step ahead. But so we charge the tipping fee. They recognize the savings. We generate the biochar, obviously. Offtake agreements into agriculture. We've also got some really cool stuff in the works. This is really great and in use in Europe right now as a aggregate in asphalt and concrete. So
oh, really?
Yeah. We've got some exciting stuff going right now. We've got some concrete work going on. It increases the tensile strength of the concrete while making it way less.
All right, so put your Michigander hat on.
Yeah.
I mean, is this going to be the solve for Michigan's roads?
I don't know if there is a solve for Michigan's roads.
Fair enough.
We'll let Big Gretsch handle that.
Yeah. Oh. So there are other uses that aren't being applied in the United States, but have been successful.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, absolutely. And in trials, right? I mean, everything from, upcycling biochar to carbon black, the stuff that makes your tires black, printing ink. It's really, really fantastic filtration media as well. So We're in the initial stages of doing some pilots in Florida with biochar filtration for stormwater runoff and retention.
Right, it'd be like the like a charcoal filtration.
Filter. Exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yep. And it's fantastic in animal bedding as well. Increasing use in poultry, to, mix it in with the bedding in poultry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, and there's probably uses that we don't even know about.
100%.
There'll be just more and more uses.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to be able to take something that's already being harvested in the sense of people cleaning up their yards, the brown bag on the side, the garbage company picks it up, takes it to the landfill, and they decide what to do with it.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
You can turn it all into, that breakdown is 1/5.
Yeah.
Basically.
Exactly.
So it turns into 1/5. So you have the space savings, and then you have a useful product out of it.
Right. And generating the carbon credits as the third stream.
Third stream revenue.
Yeah.
I think that's fascinating.
Yeah.
And let's take a second to thank Diag Partners, our sponsor for this episode. They're a staffing and recruiting firm, and they specialize in matching companies with the right people, not just any people. Whether you're filling one critical role or building out an entire team, Diag Partners handles the search so you don't have to. We can speak to this firsthand. It's the same firm Rock Harbor turns to when we're hiring. Check them out at diagpartners.com. What's stopping you? Obviously, you have a tremendously successful test case. So what are the biggest headwinds to expansion?
Yeah, I mean, getting a government official to do something different is tough, right? Especially, as I mentioned earlier, especially when it's something that is showing up every single day and it's something that touches every single resident on the daily basis. If trash breaks down, people hear about it. Everybody's going to hear about it. So, finding the right partner in Leon County was huge for us. It was absolutely huge. And they've become a real validator for us in validating not just the model, but who we are, right? We're not going to come to you and tell you we're going to do something and then not be able to do it. So overcoming that newness, if you will, is a challenge. Navigating the regulatory world on this was a challenge. And we've done that. And again, that was my background in sitting on the other side of the table,
right,
was really, really helpful in doing that. But we needed to navigate that at the federal level and at the state level in Florida, and we were able to do that. And then it's growth and expansion, right? It is, the equipment that we use, we've got great manufacturing partners, but it's not something that is off the shelf and sitting in a warehouse and we can go drop 10 of these in at the drop of a hat. So it's time lead up for that. It's building out the site. And then, as you mentioned, it's funding and financing that entire platform to go to these counties.
Well, and fortunately, counties are not going to move that fast. So
right.
you likely have the lead up
right.
to
right.
order everything and
right.
and get that in place. What's stopping you from expanding outside of Florida right now? Would that be a whole new set of state regulators you got to go through?
Exactly. Nothing's really stopping us, but we've been intentional of let's start, let's grow, let's understand this regulatory environment, and then as it is exactly what you said, Jason. It's 50 different regulatory environments across the country. So it's just finding where we fit in those different regulatory regimes.
All right. So if a county commissioner is listening to this,
call me
from anywhere in the country, though, and they realize they have a yard waste problem.
Absolutely. We're happy to talk.
Might as well engage in the conversation.
We're happy to talk. Absolutely.
I think that's fascinating. Have you thought about, from a business perspective, any partnership with other waste management companies or kind of the large?
Yeah, we have. And we've had some of those conversations and discussions. I mean, look, half the landfills in the country are privately owned. So they've got the same fixed asset as well. So, extending their useful life, let us, we can do this.
Well, that creates extending their useful life creates enterprise value for their company.
It's huge. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it.
So I think this is a true win-win. I mean, any county looking at it could see the benefits. Whether they will or not is to be determined, but it should be, it's rare that you have the public-private partnership that creates benefits for both
on
parties.
both sides. Yeah. Yeah. And look, it's not the right fit for everything, and it's not the magic bullet that's going to, solve all the waste problems that there are. There are a lot of problems, but it is something that we've demonstrated through a lot of hard work and some dirty hands that we can do it. And it's a start.
I would think, have you looked at like the Hawaii market? I know waste management in Hawaii is a challenge and obviously a limited.
Yeah. I would say not dissimilar to waste challenges that, say, the Florida Keys face as well.
Right.
So, yeah.
So
yeah. It comes down to a real estate problem, right? There's limited space, and it has value and use, and there are just limited options.
So what would be your slogan? Waste doesn't have to be waste, or
yeah, I mean, we put reimagine waste on a lot of stuff that we do. And look, like that waste is a human concept, right? It's waste because we say it is.
Right.
Because we haven't figured out something else to do with it.
Right, and there are people that have their own compost and everything else, and it's very similar to that concept.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, this is fascinating. What else would you like everyone to know about Recap specifically and Biochar?
Recap specifically? You got yard debris, give us a call. We'll take care of it for you. No, I would just say, yeah, it is our path and our journey was really winding and twisting. And when we landed on, we are a waste management company. That's what we do. And it is our name, recapture, right? Like we want to recapture the value that people are tossing away.
Literally throwing away.
Yeah. So from a company standpoint, that for Biochar, I would just say stay tuned. I think there's so much potential and value and use that has not moved from the 20,000 peer-reviewed studies published on Biochar. It has not moved from the lab to the real world because there's not enough of it and because it's too expensive. And there's not enough of it and it's too expensive because of the way that it's been made until Recap. And we're going to change that. We're going to make this product available. It's not in use in concrete because the smallest plant in Florida needs 1 million tons a year, and there are 80,000 tons a year produced in the entire country.
Right.
That's why. So I would say stay tuned. There's more coming. There's a lot more that is going to move from the lab to the real world, and it's going to be really exciting.
Oh, that's fascinating. So with Europe using it, how are they doing Biochar differently?
In terms of use or in terms of creation? Or
well, in use, you mentioned that they use it in different uses than we use in the United States, but in terms of creation.
So they're generally the same. Again, they're even in Europe, they're not doing this mixed yard waste stream. They'll do some from land clearing operation or from like parks and recs. So you're just dealing with nice tree branches. You're not dealing with the whole mix that we are. They're also pyrolyzing biosolids from wastewater treatment, which is just starting to be discussed in the U.S.
Yeah, so there's a lot of that too.
There's a lot of that.
Well, we like to do a rapid fire Q&A.
Awesome.
In a lot of these, so
we'll see how rapid I am.
It changes by guess. Some are more verbose than they need to be. Biggest misconception people have about waste management?
That it is all dirty and slimy and Sopranos style actors keeping people out of the wrong side of the trash truck.
All right, that makes sense.
It is not that way.
Yeah. Hillsdale or Michigan Ross as far as shaping kind of the way you think about things.
Oh, man. Go blue.
All right.
Go blue.
All right.
I will say, yeah, in different ways. I will say the education that I got at Hillsdale, great and fantastic, foundational on how to think. Michigan was a different in terms of more technical and more exposure to different, which I found really, really helpful. I love having conversations with people that I don't agree with. I think this is me getting on my soapbox, getting into public policy, sorry. But I think in general, we need a heck of a lot more of that because we're way too cloistered off with people that
right. And then in our echo chamber,
100%. 100%. I love talking to people I disagree with because it's either going to change my mind or it's going to make me really defend and better understand my own position.
Yeah.
Michigan did that.
Oh, that's a good answer. Best piece of advice you were given while working in government?
Don't forget who the boss is. And the boss is not the person whose name is on the door.
Right, it'd be the people.
The boss is the people who put the person there. Yeah.
Worst piece of advice you got in government?
How much? This is not a rapid fire. How much time we got? No, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a worst piece of advice, but look, like you want to talk about misconceptions about the waste industry, these misconceptions about the political industry, too. Maybe they're the same misconceptions, but there are just bad people in politics and public policy that have absolutely no business being there. But that's not all that's there. There are great people there too. And I'm not just talking about the elected officials, right? Like I'm talking about the 5,000 coworkers I had at the U.S. Department of Education who are career civil servants who dedicate their lives to this and doing great, fantastic, amazing things, again, for their consumers, for their constituents, students, teachers, educators, and the like.
Right, and often overlooked because it's so politicized.
Always overlooked. Yep. Yeah.
Fastest way to win over a skeptical county commissioner?
You got to prove it.
Not have him make coffee with it.
Don't make coffee out of it. No, you got to prove they're the same way. And this, again, was really helpful for me. I've been on the other side of these meetings, too, of buy my widget. It's going to do X, Y, and Z and solve all your problems.
That solves everything.
You got to be honest with them, and you got to show. You got to prove.
Right. And so in this case, you proved at your own cost.
Yep.
Which I think they would be open to.
Yeah.
Right. Here's something that can benefit us, and they're paying for it.
It's been hugely helpful. It's been hugely helpful. Yeah. And that's the other thing, too, is you've got to show to them how they win. How do they win? How did they get a win for themselves, their county, their constituents, whatever it is, out of what they don't care if Recap gets a win. They need it. So being able to demonstrate that to them has been really helpful too.
Yeah. All right. And last one, even though this could be difficult given the state of Michigan sports teams, but favorite Michigan sports team?
It is difficult. It is difficult. I'm going to have to say the Pistons.
Well, they are the only ones having any success right now. I mean,
they lots of Pistons games growing up, old school back at the Palace. So yeah, I gotta say the Pistons.
Okay, I did not expect that.
Yeah. Well, we'll put an asterisk by Michigan football. We'll see. Ask me in a few months. We'll see.
Well, I mean, the Lions would have been a layup.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Probably not the Tigers.
Probably not.
this week in particular.
Probably not.
All right. Where can our listeners look into more about Recap and find you?
Recapcarbon.com.
All right. Recapcarbon.com. And I
that's it.
know your website has a lot of different material on it.
Yep.
And kind of the genesis of how it came together.
Yep.
I think it's absolutely fascinating, and it's, waste doesn't have to be waste.
Exactly right.
So recapturing value.
That's what we do.
That's fantastic. Josh, really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much. Great to be here.
Great to have you.
Thanks for the conversation.